Jenny? What kind of flower is it?
It's purple.
It's purple?
Yeah.
Aww.
Here you go.
Thank you, Mommy. She said,
Healing from religious trauma, especially in relation to a wounded identity, requires addressing deep, emotional, and spiritual scars left by harmful experiences within a religious setting. The wounds may stem from strict doctrines, manipulation, or narcissistic abuse, all of which can deeply affect one's self-worth, identity, and sense of purpose. Here are some ways to begin healing. Number 1, acknowledge and validate the pain. Recognize that the trauma you experienced was real and that it's okay to feel hurt, confused, or betrayed. This is a critical and crucial step towards healing.
Divine unions. I think it's really important to understand this law, this spiritual law that is consistently in place in the universe. And it has to do with prayer. It has to do with your thoughts, which is what prayer is. And I want to read something to you guys because this really struck me today. And it's one of those passages in...
Number 2, rebuild a positive self-identity. Religious trauma can strip away your sense of self and self-worth. Focusing on radical self-worth can help rebuild that identity where self-love and self-compassion become cornerstones of your healing journey.
And requires practice. The first requirement is a controlled imagination. Parade and vain repetitions are foreign to prayer. Its exercise requires tranquility.
Number 3,
and peace of mind.
Deconstruct toxic beliefs. Begin questioning the harmful beliefs that were imposed on you. Understanding that you have the power to define your own spirituality outside of dogma or manipulation, which helps you heal the trauma and reclaim your truth and authenticity.
Those who do practice the art of prayer are often ignorant of the laws that control it.
Baby, you should know this. But I ain't going. I ain't blowing no smoke. I mean, I've been sober, but you should've known it. And I wasn't going.
This is religious abuse. Religion can provide us with a guide for positive moral action and treating others right. But religious beliefs can also encourage and justify abusive behavior in families and when raising children. Parents who are unable to adaptively discipline their children may turn to religious ideas to intimidate and control them. Remember, religious abuse is emotional abuse, and it manifests itself in the abused person's future relationships. This abuse influences how you interact with others and how you self-regulate. Can you relate?
Have you said or have you heard someone say, after all I've done for you, this is how you're going to treat me, this is how you're going to repay me? I did all of these things because I love you, and this is what I get in return? If you do something for somebody with the expectation of something in return, that is not love, that is called a transaction. If you do something for someone with the expectation of something in return and you mask it as love, that is also not love. That is called manipulation, using guilt and shame. So, love does not have an agenda, period. It just doesn't.
I want to send a message to all my empaths out there. Never feel guilty for cutting someone off that handed you the scissors.
Purity culture and resentment part 2. I internalized purity culture as shame, being ashamed of my body, and that shame turned to resentment, and I'm carrying that shame and resentment into my marriage, and overnight you're supposed to flip that switch and become a sex kitten. No, not even close. Awkward human being here. Also, Bible college the church, women's ministries all taught me that my husband was entitled to my body, and that if he goes looking elsewhere, it's my fault. So once you get married, not only am I supposed to be a sex kitten, but now sex is expected. That expectation turned to resentment. I started resenting sex. I started resenting my husband. He never placed that expectation on me, but we never communicated about it. And so this went on for years until I started unraveling purity culture, which is why purity culture is so toxic. Root it out, y'all.
Biblical literalism, the claim to follow the Bible literally without interpretation or contextualization, is very dangerous. And it's usually coupled with the doctrine of inerrancy. So what that means is the person teaching is saying that their interpretation of the Bible is not in fact an interpretation at all, but the literal inerrant words of God. They say things like, the Bible said it, I believe it, that settles it. Or the Bible clearly says. I've talked before about how even a translation is an interpretation, and about how everybody takes some passages literally and some figuratively. I have a put a finger down challenge that I'll pin to the top of my page that goes through 10 passages in the New Testament that most evangelicals don't take literally. This is how we end up with so many truly bananas doctrines in the evangelical church, especially non-denominational ones. Any pastor or teacher can declare their interpretation the literal inerrant word of God. And this is one of the things I call out the most because it's blatant hypocrisy and it's so dangerous. They've weaponized the doctrines of sola scriptura and biblical inerrancy in order to sanctify their interpretation as the literal words of God with no room for disagreement.
3 toxic things religious people say to you. I'm Jamie, I'm a licensed therapist. Let's go. God has a plan. Psychologically, this can be dismissive or invalidating. And saying God has a plan or saying that God doesn't give us more than we can handle, honestly, that basically makes us feel like, well, if I can't handle it, it must be me. I'll pray for you. Some people have complicated relationships with God, so that actually can come off pretty rough. An alternative to this is, I'll be with you. Do you want me to sit with you? Do you want me to listen to you? And lastly, this is a spiritual attack. Satan must have his hand in this. This implies that Satan is the thing that's kind of catapulting this mental disorder forward, okay? And that implies, how would you fix that? That implies that you need to do more. You need to pray more. You need to read the Bible more. You need to go to church more. It's victim blaming.
It can be helpful to be positive with folks who are going through emotional pain, but toxic positivity is not. This is the overgeneralization of a joyful or happy state to an experience that is inherently painful. So if you want to support someone going through the struggle, make sure that you avoid these 5 phrases of toxic positivity from a licensed therapist. First, think positive. People who are having emotional health issues experience cognitive distortions. So that's like saying, look for the colors in the black and white TV. Second, just smile. This implies that you don't care about the other person's emotional pain and it just makes you uncomfortable. Third, things aren't that bad. This just implies that they're being dramatic and their feelings again are invalid. Fourth, other people have it worse. This shows that you're disappointed in their efforts and that you think they're handling it poorly. And fifth, you're just stuck in a rut. Everyone gets in a rut from time to time. This minimizes emotional mental health issues as health issues and confuses sadness with depression, nervousness with anxiety.
Religious narcissists. Now, since narcissists are all about control, it's not surprising that some of them gravitate towards religions, and they'll use religious expressions to try to control other people's behavior, while simultaneously getting them to ignore their own bad behaviors. Now, a narcissistic parent may love one of the 10 commandments, honor thy father and thy mother. And what they are doing with that is, they could be trying to control you with that and getting you to ignore your own boundaries and intuition, or getting you to ignore their own bad behaviors. The same can be said for trying to get people to forgive. You must forgive to be a good Christian. It's like, well, I don't necessarily agree with that, but they might try to bully or intimidate people using that expression. And I always remember Oscar Wilde saying, it's not selfish to live as you want to live, but it is selfish to get others to try to live as you live.
Hey everybody, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you
resonate with this message, if you resonate with this type of content, make sure you leave a comment and subscribe to the channel, and you'll be notified every time that I go live. So let's create a better world. Thanks, guys, for watching.
My red rose blossoms dance around my floors, and only kings and queens can enter through.